So residents in Westbury in Johannesburg say they are living in fear following the deaths or murders, in fact, of two people in separate incidents recently. The area has seen a resurgence in gang-related violence in recent days. Let's talk about the situation with Calvin Rafadi, forensic investigator and crime expert at Bizz Tracers. Welcome back to Daytime Update, Calvin. So, as I'm saying, this is a resurgence in violence in the Westbury area, captured today in a report by the News 24 team. But why has this problem been allowed to go on for so long, especially the gangsterism aspect?
Yes, I think the problem with these gangs is they are not properly investigated and they are not rooted out of the streets. So that's why it's an ongoing thing. Now, remember, we're dealing with two gangs here, and whenever they fight for territories or they fight for territories, that's when now they become so violent and they start shooting and randomly shooting one another so that they can gain their turf. So it has been an ongoing crime as far as, if you remember, in 2018, the residents went out on a rampage and then police ministry went there and they promised them, obviously, the TRT, the usual stuff they promise. And the problem still persists. And if you remember, this type of shootings, they are also linked to one of the shootings in a restaurant in Melville, Poppy Restaurant, in December in 2020. So it has been an ongoing crime, but it never seems to stop.
Why has it been ignored, do you think, when you consider that it has somewhat of a similarity, does it not, to the gangsterism crisis on the Cape Flats in the Western Cape?
Look, the suspects are identified, or let me say the perpetrators who are behind this particular crime. Like, for instance, if we take Westbury, you look at the gang called Fast Guns, and you look at another gang called Wanderers, which is led by Leroy Brown, and the other one is led by Sheldon Kina. But this type of people, they are living so large, they are so moneyed, they are so well connected as far as to the courts and even the police themselves, some of the rotten apples. So that's why you see this type of crime continuing and the police not being able to deal with this. But to get a solution in all these things, we need the residents to sign a petition. We take that petition. Myself, as a forensic investigator, I'm willing to be a complainant on their behalf. Because the police sometimes they've got a tendency that you cannot deal with a crime if there's no complainant. And these people are feared in their area and people don't want to even mention their name. So because they are selling drugs, it's money-related issues. So let's follow the money. As far as to the casinos where they do money laundering, as far as to the companies that they wash the money and they pay them salaries, let's follow the money. Let's get Poker Act into the system. And then assets forfeiture, you need to take their resources.
And I'm looking at a report now from back in June of this year, 24th of June, when this was reported by News 24. And they were reporting at the time, for instance, on a shooting outside a block of flats in which 5 men and a woman were actually wounded while waiting outside that block of flats, which, as you were just referencing one of the groups, and it said that block of flats belongs to the Fast Guns gang. And I want to talk about that aspect, about how gang leaders and gang members have become so at home that even their crimes are committed in full display, right? Precisely because people are either afraid or they've bought their silence.
Yes. You see, coming to the issues of them owning properties, indeed they are owning the properties, because what is the modus operandi of these particular gangs, what they normally do, they recruit youngsters whom most of them, they start recruiting them and testing the drugs, because they have to test the ingredient and the kick of a drug. Now, if it's a half kick, there's a certain price they must be sold for. If it's a full kick, but they test these drugs to the kids, and these kids, they tend now to fall into prey and become addicts and even junkies. Now, most of these kids, some of them, they live with their parents and they inherit these particular houses. Now, guess what? The same drug laws, they come and buy, influence, and buy these houses from these kids, or even make plans, because the kids are addicted to drugs. Now, coming to the point of shootings, remember, these people are not trained like your TRT and any other law enforcement who goes for training. So if they shoot, they send a message, they just shoot randomly. So pass-by people or people, even innocent people, they get caught up in this crossfire. But to deal with this matter at this stage, we need military to be deployed. Like we said in Cape Town, military needs to be deployed to minimize this type of shootings get rid of these firearms. Then after doing that, we need a proper detective who knows what is Poker Act of 122 of 1998 to come and deal now, to follow the money into this organized crime. Then we take the resources from these particular people, because it can happen that you get a few people that are living so large, they owning houses and flats, they are doing money laundering, and yet nothing happens to them. And come the time when they fight, even innocent people suffer from that.
But how effective would a military deployment be, given that, I mean, I'll go back to the example of the Western Cape. When the military was deployed to the Western Cape, there appeared to be a lull in gang violence, but as soon as those military vehicles left, it was back to square one for some of those communities. So why would it be different for Westbury?
It will be different because, like I say, immediately after, now the situation it comes down, and the guns are taken off the streets, and the residents are safe. Now that's why I'm saying we need detectives who understand what is Poker Act to come and now deal with these particular people. Because now, if you only deal with the crime at the bottom and you don't take out the root, it will still persist. So if we take the resources from these people, we disarm them all the resources, and then you are dealing with the crime, then you eradicate it completely. But if you leave them with the resources, they go back to the streets. Their money, they buy their justice, they buy the police and all those things. And, you know, and they even influence our kids. I mean, most of the kids that are drug addicts, I mean, we know even in our homes when we've got drug addicts, they become a problem. They mess up the whole family. It becomes like a rampage. So there's not even peace there. So let's disarm these people, their resources. Let's disarm them through what you call this thing, the Poker Act, and your assets forfeiture unit. Then let's destabilize the whole place.
But it's also a far more complex problem than just policing, is it not, Calvin? Because yes, it's one thing to talk about what needs to happen at a policing level. We can go back and forth about how effective military deployment is going to be, because soldiers aren't responsible for policing duties. But when you look at the holistic picture, you've got children who are growing up in an environment where violence is rampant. Some start to look up to these gangsters, also because they come from environments, as we've seen in some of these areas, where many people are poor, and involvement in crime is sometimes seen as the only way you can help your family survive. So until that too is addressed, this will never end.
Yes, like I say, the resources, because these people are moneyed. That's why they become role models. I mean, the kids, when they grow up, they can see somebody driving a fancy car and nobody knows where they work, or they know that he's a gangster. They tend to fall into prey and follow the same method or the same way, or they want to belong in those particular gangs because they can see that, oh, there's a better life than I'm hungry, I'm from home, there was only one slice of bread, so that man can give me the bread. And if they do that, and then you become indebted to these particular drug dealers. But, you know, that's a good one that you have asked, because I was discussing with my team that, you know, even in Bizos, I think we need the producers of your soapies, your dramas, because even them, they play a very important role at some point, because people, what you watch is what you idolize. So some people, they believe what they watch on the movies and the dramas, that it is the real truth. So if we see drug dealers, even on some of the soapies, they live a nice life and forever, and they don't die, or police don't arrest them, they buy their ways. So people think that is the real life, and they want to practice that life even in the streets.
Calvin Rafadi, forensic investigator and crime expert at Bizz Tracers. Good to have your time, sir. Thank you.